Welcome to the fourth episode of Eastern 2016 Recaps from Reality TV Warriors. My name is Michael Armstrong, and joining me as always is the Canadian who he'd like but can't help feel that he's screwing us, Logan Saunders.
Good afternoon.
And the guy who has been known to frisk anyone who'll give him 2 minutes, David Bindley.
Yes, I will. Good morning.
Good morning. I had forgotten how good this episode is.
Yeah.
This was a delight of an episode.
Yeah. Like, I always thought this was the weak episode after the first two, but this one is really, really good.
Yeah, this one is just full of character moments and people being idiots, which we can talk about.
Yeah.
Cecile as Penny Macer? Cecile?
I think you'll find that Cecile, queen of piss-coloured shoes, and by her own admission, is terrible with money.
How did she get a majority vote?
Because everyone hates Tim and Ellie more.
I guess Cecile should have talked into a fork more often.
I just love this entire episode, I'll be honest. It's so much fun. I was watching it this morning just laughing my head off at some bits of it. I'll be honest, mainly Tim giving one of the divers a black eye. That really made me laugh.
Yeah. By reflex.
I know it's an occupational hazard, but it still very much made me laugh that they didn't even think, oh, maybe someone's going to hit him in the face with the paddle.
You just killed producer Rick.
And after nearly a year of trying to find it, that is a paddling.
Try to tip my boat? You better believe that's a paddling.
So previously, the final 9 was split up all over Santo Domingo and had to come together to earn thirds of notes. The mystery of the monetary pattern was basically solved already before Rop stumbled at the laser game. Before the execution, someone paid 2/3 of the pot to have power over the test, before my first suspicion of Remy went home. So they are now in Samana. Art says that the shock of the test and execution still reverberates around the group. As well as losing Remy, they lost a lot of money. 2,340 euros is ridiculous to the group, apart from one of them.
Apart from one of them, would that be the cast of Mexico this past season?
No, that's just Cecile, because she has 2,340 is nothing. I spent that in a day.
My fur coats are worth more than that.
Well, that's a down payment on lunch.
The openness in the group is gone, and no one is sharing anything anymore. But maybe it'll change when they leave Santo Domingo behind for the idyllic paradise of Samana. And the episode title is Less Than You Think. Everyone narrates their departure on day 7, and when they get to Samana, Taka comes out of the water pretending that he's on Baywatch.
I wrote the exact same note. Taka playing with a soccer ball and posing for Baywatch while running.
I just wrote that, like, all of the "Isn't this gorgeous" confessionals were kind of ruined by Taka running around with his very, very, very white chest on display.
He plays hockey for a living. He doesn't see sunshine. Or played
Field
hockey,
hockey.
I should say. I think he's retired at this point.
Field hockey, not ice hockey.
Yeah, but still.
Both indoors.
Yeah, you don't have to play field hockey outside. I know it is field hockey, but you can play it indoors. And by the look of things, he very much does. Klaas decides he wants to relinquish the treasurer role. He wants to see how someone else guards the money. He decides to test the group, and as expected, Tim and Ellie volunteer very quickly. Cecile just decides to fuck with them and go for it as well, and she wins with a majority vote.
God, Rob doing his bad impersonation of Ellie.
Rob's impersonation of Ellie was actually very good, I thought. We certainly had worst impressions on the podcast this year.
Yeah, we haven't had a spot-on impression since Cena and Chan.
What about actually Drunk Your Own was pretty good. I don't want to toot my own horn, but Drunk Your Own was pretty good.
I wonder if Rob can bleat.
Well, how old is he at this point? Because I know Taka's 44. I only know this because I was looking at Taka's height, because there is a brilliant sight gag where he looks like he's about 3 foot tall.
Rob was 41 at the time, so 49?
He's definitely on the cusp of being able to bleat then.
He's at least blee.
I meant to send you guys a picture, actually, because I was doing one of the puzzles that I do over the weekend, and one of the answers was genuinely bleat. And I saw it and thought of you guys.
What the bleat?
It's one of those many, many occasions where the podcast has corrupted me now. Whenever I see the word bleat, I just go, oh, I wonder if they can bleat. So Cecile wins, despite not being able to handle money or count, and the only thing she says she's good at is colour coordination and being able to spend money. And they head to Las Galerias Beach for the first challenge. Art tells them that danger lurks below the water, but they must head out there to find money. There are 23 containers attached to buoys, some with money, some empty, and some with minus money. And they will get a list, and the codes with money are the ones without a red number. And they will head out into the water in 2 kayaks, where they must collect and bring the containers to the finish. However, if they fall in the water, they and any containers they're carrying will be out of the challenge. And Ellie, having not seen this show, fears that it's going to be sharks in the water and not divers just there to push them over.
Maybe she watched the first Austin Powers right before this. It's going to be sharks with freaking laser beams, Ellie.
And then if Taka walks far enough, you just see like a bush covering him.
Yeah, because the thing is, when Art's doing his speech giving them all the instructions to this challenge, Taka's in the front row. And Taka looks tiny. He looks like Bindles and Horace Cohen, family name Horace Cohen, from New York City, Netherlands, USA. Height. Like, Taka is 5'10", apparently. Taka does not look 5'10" in that shot.
Jesus.
He must be standing in a hole or very far away from the camera. I don't know why, but Taka does give me very short guy energy anyway. But yeah, apparently he's 5'10", which is like, what, 2 of you Bindles, is it?
Something like that.
The first pair are Rop and Cecile, and she says the downside of being on Viestemol is that they make her wear shoes that she would never wear even with a gun to her head. In this case, water shoes that stretch in a terrible piss colour. And they have 10 minutes individually to grab their containers.
I think Cecile hated the shoes more than she hated the idea of rock climbing.
Can I just say, like, the memorizing part of this is really bad TV.
Yes, it is. We've discussed this frequently. I mean, we're going to get to this with the rock climbing challenge. Watching people rock climb and do brain teasers, not interesting television. Take note, producers of the 1% Club.
They did a very similar challenge in Sri Lanka the year before, and it was similarly terrible there. So I don't know why they were so eager to repeat it so quickly.
If I remember rightly, the Sri Lanka one actually had a clue in it, at least.
Yeah.
It's the one clue that I have ever spotted, and bearing in mind we're recording this before we've seen the results of Belgian Mole yet, so I might have been right this year and spotted a clue. But it's the one clue in Vidum, at least, that I've ever spotted as it's aired, and I was very pleased with myself when I did work it out, was that Sri Lanka one. But yeah, this just doesn't make interesting television. Obviously, the interesting bit is the divers pushing people over, which is inherently hilarious, but seeing them just scream random number sets through a megaphone, not interesting television.
It kind of feels like the megaphone was only added so that the people on the beach would have something to do instead of just being yet another challenge where they go out one at a time, come back one at a time.
And the problem as well is there was no megadiscipline here.
Yeah.
Like, everyone was just shouting over each other on the shore. Nobody knew who to listen to. In one case, when Tim goes out, he actually tells them to basically shut the fuck up and stop screaming numbers at him.
72, 7, banana, orange.
So those on the shore realise they don't need to do anything other than the first 4 numbers for each of the right codes, and Klaas gets on the megaphone first to relay the first set. Cecile tells us that as treasurer, she should be focused on money, but she just wanted to be out in the water as she loves to sail. Rob grabs some containers before being destroyed by a wave, and he returns with 3 minutes left on the clock. Now, obviously, the fun bit, Cecile being chased to the Jaws theme. Because these editors know exactly what they're doing.
Yeah. She's going to need a bigger kayak.
As much as obviously we're going to criticise this challenge for being very boring in the shouting numbers bit, this is quite Belgian the way that they actually scored this scene, because there's a few bits of the Jaws soundtrack that they use when the divers are approaching.
Yeah, we even see the hand reach out to tip the boat over.
It's just funny just watching the disembodied hands just come up from the water, like it's like they're on Wipeout.
Yeah. And she is indeed capsized by a diver, and her 3 containers are out of the game. And luckily, she makes it to the shore alive.
They were really trying to build up. Well, Cecile isn't coming back, like she was actually murdered by this diver.
Yeah.
And I think, obviously, Saunders hasn't seen this season and doesn't know who the mole is or where anyone goes. I think after this episode, you've got to be in love with Cecile Nerix at this point, I think. She's a star.
I think she was a star the second she ran out in that laser game and succeeded while many other athletic people failed at the laser game.
Yeah. I know we've talked before about Ellie Loost having no place on Vidum generally and being a very unique archetype, but I think Cecile is as well.
Yeah.
You never get anyone like Cecile before or after this.
I don't know. I think she's sort of like the proto Olche Goulson.
Yeah, I can see that. She's incredibly dry in confessionals.
Yeah.
And charming.
I do love Cecile.
I mean, spoilers, she is by far the best character of the season, although someone else is definitely rising up the rankings. I was saying to Bindles before we started recording that there was someone who I remembered liking at the time, but I really like them in this season on a rewatch. So Tim and Ellie are the next pair. She's never kayaked before in her life, and Tim struggles with class's incessant yelling and threatens to cut his throat, basically in his motion.
It would just be funny if there's like a pool of blood while he's using the paddle. Damn it, get away, get away, get away, get away.
If Tim's paddle would have reached far enough, he would have clocked class, I think, at this point. Just shut the fuck up and leave us alone.
I think my favourite sight gag in this entire challenge is Tim getting immediately confused by balls.
Yeah. I mean, Tim is great in this challenge as well. I know I love Cecile, but Tim, as I've already alluded to, realizing he's about to get capsized by a diver, so he just uses the paddle and whacks him in the face. Like, no one else can do that. No one else does do that. Everyone else was probably told, yeah, there are going to be people in the water. Please don't hurt them. Tim hears that and goes, you know what? I can claim it's an accident, and just whacks him in the face with the paddle.
I suspect they may have been given a warning after Tim did his attempt.
Yes, I think so.
Because Rob got through safely. Cecile was nowhere close. And then it was Tim. So I think everyone else just got told, hey, just, be careful because we didn't think this challenge through properly.
Yeah, this is definitely a production didn't think that this would be nearly as violent as it is challenge, I think.
Yeah, I'm sure after Tim nearly murdered the diver, they had to say, well, we didn't think we'd have to make this an official rule, but if anybody else beats the absolute crap out of one of our producers in the water, we're going to take 500 euros from the pot.
Yeah. You were not in the kayak zone when you made contact.
If you cast your mind back to episode 1 when we were talking about Tim's background, this is a guy who, being a bit of a troll and an investigative journalist, went into somewhere and got his nose broken. Do you really think he's going to have any boundaries when it comes to hitting people in the face with the paddle? They knew what they were doing when they cast him, I would say.
I don't know if they thought he would have any boundaries, but I think they thought he would have a safe word at least. The safe word is ananas.
It's both the greatest shame to befall any Italian pizza and Tim's safe word.
And is also somehow tied to Amazing Race 30. That was a safe word there too.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. It was.
What a bizarre connection.
Yeah, we don't acknowledge Amazing Race on this podcast anymore. I do wonder if people are missing our Amazing Race coverage when everyone's just a bit too nice to the teams now.
I think James came after Vinny a bit.
We should do like one of the really nasty seasons, like Amazing Race 6 as a historians one year.
Oh God, can you imagine?
And just like completely ignore the existence of Jonathan and just cover all of the other teams.
Yeah.
We would never do that on an Amazing Race podcast. Yeah, James Wallington's kind of taken over our banner of being a bit snarky towards the teams. I've noticed he gets downvoted a lot on the Amazing Race subreddit.
So do Lewis and Michelle. Whenever they post their podcast, they always get downvoted too.
Yeah, James comments, so James wades into discussion and gets himself downvotes.
And then, because Lewis and Michelle now have a regular segment on their podcast called Reddit Reality, where they just poach a couple comments from Reddit and just make fun of the comment.
Oh, good. I like Lewis and Michelle.
Yeah, well, I think Mike is the one who pulls out looks up the comments and screenshots it, and they look at it.
Some guy called Mike, I think you find.
Some guy called Mike. He has ditched that nickname. It took him, I think, after 2 years, realized, yeah, that joke has run its course.
So Ellie finds a safe zone, which is obviously ringed in Ananas, where the divers can't get her, and uses it to locate the divers. I mean, she still doesn't see the one that is coming for Tim, who then gets a black eye, but, she can still look for them.
I kind of wonder how deep the water is because, from overhead, when we see the overhead shots, it doesn't look that hard to see the divers.
I don't think it was that deep. I mean, the divers were in full scuba gear,
Yeah.
so it must have been fairly deep for that, because you don't tend to use scuba gear unless it's below a certain depth, really, because there's no point. But yeah, it didn't look... It might have been a bit warped by the fact that the water's very clear.
Yeah.
It could have been deeper than it looks. Because when Cecile gets dunked, she goes below the water.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's probably a few meters deep at least. So Klaas and Annemieke are the third pair. He heads to the back as no one's headed there yet, and he grabs 2 containers, but then gets overconfident and tries to get more, and then gets capsized by a diver. And Annemieke loses her paddle while getting a ball and cuts her losses and returns, and she spots that all the containers have been claimed in one area, both the good and the bad ones. And then the final pair is Tarka and Maya Line. She spots Bubbles at the first boy, so keeps going.
No, it's on the megaphone.
Yeah, because that's the thing. They trust Tarka at this point. They know that he's not going to mess them about necessarily.
But they're not even going to help and say, pick these numbers?
I don't think anyone used it for Klaas and Annemieke either.
Well, yeah, because everyone was just deafened by Klaas shouting at them.
Yeah.
And Tarka says he has enough time to check all the groups to see if there's anything that they need. And in a beautiful bit of editing, we see from above as Tarka is approached by a diver and absolutely dunked. That is a laser-guided missile of a shot from the diver in terms of getting him out of that kayak. It was wonderful.
That was personal. Something happened between those two.
Yeah.
There was a string under the kayak, and the diver managed to not only sneak up on him, but properly yank it and dunk him. It was great.
And then tried to drown him afterwards, but it didn't make the edit.
And as we've already established, Tarka is allegedly much taller than he appears, so he was probably struggling to reach the bottom of that lagoon. Bless him. He needed a buoyancy aid.
Yeah, he's wearing water wings.
Yeah. And Tim's response is, of course, the beautifully understanding, Rob, tell Tarka he's an arsehole. Marjolein returns with her one, though, and Art returns to confirm 6 containers were returned, and they get a total of €1,300 in positive money and €300 in minus money, for a total of 1,000 of, I'm guessing, 2,000 for the challenge.
Yeah. It feels like they did pretty good considering how low the pot is at this point, but without knowing how much was available overall in this challenge, it's kind of tough to know how badly this was fucked up overall.
I think Marjolein said there were 4 tubes that they didn't get that were positive money, which is why I've guesstimated, looking at the quantities that we did see, that it's probably about 2,000.
Yeah, that's fair.
It may have been 2.5, but I'm going to use 2,000 as my calculations. And Marjolein says that the mole brought in minus money under their noses. Now, it's at this point that I warn you of the suspect list question, Mr. Saunders, which is, how many tubes did the mole bring in? Was it 0, 1, or 2?
Who brought in 2 tubes?
Well, I have the list for the end of the episode, but I'll scroll down. So the 0 tubes were Cecile, Tim, Klaas, and Tarka. 1 was Annemieke and Marjolein, and 2 was Rob and Ellie. You don't have to give me the answer yet, but it's
0 tubes. I'm giving you the answer now. 0.
Okay. You go straight for the answer. I'll ask you again at the end of the episode because, I don't acknowledge any answers before them.
Okay.
Except to say interesting.
Except to say interesting, yeah, correct. As Fuzzy has found out. So it's now day 8, and the B-roll has not changed since day 7. They're having breakfast and writing down what everyone else is eating. And Art rings the phone, which apparently they were given and we weren't told about.
Yeah, I wonder if that production said, you know what? Watching them write down what each other eats, not the most interesting footage. Let's just give them a phone.
And he tells them that the next assignment is all about working together well and strategic insight, and they must form pairs before he sees them next. And Marjolein quips that it will take them all day, and what are they doing tomorrow? Marjolein doesn't get that many good lines up to this point in the season, I would say.
Yeah.
This is a good one.
Yeah. I kind of forgot how much I enjoyed Mario Line.
Yeah, definitely. And class takes a step back again to see who works with who. Annemieke wants to work with Taka, and he then gets a really sarky line of saying, I'd rather not. And they do end up pairing up, as do Tim and Rob, to split up Annemieke and Rob's bond. And they head to Las Galeras, and it's time for a kind of Path of Temptation, head-to-head duel thing.
Duel of Temptation?
I know Bindles complains about them reusing the Path of Temptation all the time, but I quite like this one. This one's a fun twist on it, at least.
Yeah. I don't mind them reusing the Path of Temptation or any of the other regular challenges as long as they do something interesting with it.
Yeah.
And I think more than any of the other challenges, Path of Temptation sort of feels like they sort of don't really come up with anything interesting. Like they'll do something like, oh, if you make it to the end, it's a non-elimination like they did in China, or one of them is a double elimination like they did in Colombia, but they don't really do anything to like change the structure and make it inventive. And I think this is one of the few times where they do it, which is good, especially for a season like this that, the challenges up to now have not been great.
No. It does delight me that everyone ran into the mine, all 8 of them, looked at the black exemption and went, nah, can't be arsed with that.
Yeah.
Worthless.
Hey, production, you know how you want the black exemption introduced? Not going to happen.
Yeah. Did we even see anyone look at the black exemption?
I suspect it was in one of the lot boxes.
No, that makes sense.
I think it was 2 green exemptions and 1 black one.
Yeah.
It was all a blur.
Yeah. But we didn't actually see the contents of the lot boxes. I'm just presuming that was where the exemptions were. So I'll ask them what they want before telling them it's all waiting in the mine behind them for them to grab. The only thing they have to do is grab it. And he even gives them a list of what is waiting for them there. They got 5 minutes in their pairs to study the list and decide on the order. And individually, they will be battling someone from another pair. Here's the bit where I am going to grumble. Because did you guys see the actual prize list?
I didn't look at the full list, no.
Yeah, I did, but I didn't write it down this time.
I mean, it was fairly blurry on the subversion. I obviously have the unsub versions as well, so I double checked that I was right on this before I complained about it. But you have the usual prizes. There was, I think it was an exemption for episode 4 and an exemption for episode 5. There was a black exemption. There was the take it and grope everyone card that Ellie ends up getting.
Jeez.
There was 2 single yokers and the 3 yokers and minus €500 additionally. And then there was loads of monetary amounts. And you have like 2,000, 1,500, all that sort of stuff. One of them was €10. A monetary amount not available in this season.
I think it was supposed to be 100 and it was a typo.
It definitely said €10 on the list.
Hmm.
On everyone's list.
Can you see somebody just contemplating it? €10. Yeah, should we go for that?
It probably does explain why Taika was a bit like, oh, we're not taking money. Who do you think we are, Cecile?
Yeah, this is what I mean. Like, the maximum for this challenge, as we saw it, is €4,010.
What a bizarre number.
Yeah.
Can we just say that they meant to put an extra 0 and that it was supposed to be €4,100?
And also, like, why would you grab the €10?
Yeah. There is no incentive for grabbing a low monetary amount.
Unless it's not locked up.
Well, none of the monetary amounts were. I think the only locked up things were the exemptions. But I think it was maybe 6 monetary amounts in total, plus the dictionary. So maybe it was probably 7 monetary amounts in total, and then the dictionary. So if everyone had played ball, they would have managed to get all €4,010. But yeah, €10 was on the list.
Weird.
What the hell, guys?
God, Annemieke narrating this episode is boring.
Yes. Yeah, on the flip side of me saying, oh, I'd forgotten how much I enjoy certain people, Annemieke is just as boring as I remember her being.
I kind of forgot, like, the first 3 weeks, I forgot that they kind of purpled her in the edit a little bit. And this week, when they give her a lot of airtime, I'm like, oh, that's why they purpled her.
Yeah, I mean, they couldn't get away with purpling her this week, I don't think.
No.
With the whole mystery of who took 3 yokers. But the problem is, Tarka's so dumb he doesn't even think, oh, maybe she's lying about only having one Yoko.
Doesn't even cross his mind. He's like, wait a second. Wait. But Annemieke said this. Clay said this. That means... Wait, what does that...
I know Tarka spent his sporting career getting hit in the face by hockey sticks, but still.
Maybe he was the one in the water. He was the diver in the water that got hit in the head with the paddle.
Yeah, maybe. That's what we didn't see. It was actually a Tarka sabotage.
Takatage?
Sabotage.
That's better.
Sabataka? Yeah.
I knew there was one on the tip of our tongues. So Tarka immediately rules out getting any money, as they're all just thinking themselves. And Rop suspects Tim more for his character than his actions, which is such a bitchy comment. I mean, Tim, you've not really done anything suspicious, but God, you just want to make yourself suspicious.
Yeah.
And Ellie and Klaas agree to share the Yokas. He likes working with her as he trusts her and can't imagine a policewoman lying to the group. And Marjolijn and Cecile also really don't want to go for cash. The group feeling is disappearing already.
They would do well in the modern day season.
I did like Marjolijn brushing over the valuable dictionary, thinking she won't need it because she could cope with her bad Italian/Spanish.
Yeah.
And I mean, let's put a pin in that and come back to it.
Yeah, I was going to say, the irony is, that may come back. What do you think your best tactic would be here, as both a player and a mole?
As a player, go for exemption.
Well, exemptions are the most difficult things to get.
I'd still go for it.
I think because of the way this is set up, it's more important to get back with something than to go and look for the exact thing you want. Because, like, it doesn't matter, what item you grab. If you don't get back in time, you don't get it. So I think, you go find something, maybe not perfect, but better than nothing. Like, the one joker or the information about the test. I think you go for something, if you can't find the thing you want straight away, or you find it and it's in a lockbox or whatever, you just grab that thing and then come back, and then at least you've got it and nobody else does.
I think the most valuable thing here, ironically, is the Kinesis Mac power. Because if you see that and you grab that, it doesn't matter what else you see or grab.
Yeah.
That is the most valuable thing in there, because either you look like a hero and you grab money and take credit for it, or you grab something significantly more valuable that someone else is hiding from you.
And what I would do is I would grab a lighter first and then burn the Get Groped by Ellie Loost card.
That's the thing. Isn't that known as knowledge is power in Survivor? It's literally stolen from this show. It's Kinesis Macked.
Now remember, if you don't get back to Tribal Council within 2 minutes, Jeff Probst takes your idol.
Yeah, pretty much. That's how it is now, I think. Or you have to play, and if you don't, you have to play your shot in the dark, and you lose your vote for the next 3 Tribal Councils.
Any brief thoughts on Survivor 50 being confirmed as returning players like we didn't already know?
That means every social media platform will be unbearable for the next year and a half with endless speculation. When Amazing Race is already bad enough with that as it is, and where just with American television, they think, oh, well, who would you bring back for a returning player season? Like in the Amazing Race Hub Discord, that's all they talk about is, oh, I bring this team back and that team back. I do not care. Can we talk about anything else, please?
Yeah, like I think it would be more interesting to have returning players if any of the seasons lately had any personality of their own. Like you could, tell them apart or anything like that. Because they're so similar without any real themes or gimmicks or whatever, I'm kind of like, I don't care that these people are coming back.
Yeah, for me, it's more going to be really irritating for the next 18 months of endless speculation about who's going to get cast and what pre-game alliances are going to ruin it and things.
That's the great thing with like Belgian Mole or Dutch Mole is that you don't see, oh, who would you bring back for an all-star season? You're Rowan.
Yeah, that's the thing. For all my jokes about these things, nobody was crying out for your Rowan to A, come back, or B, be the one representative from Oregon. He is the 10th most likely person from Oregon if you look at that cast to come back. And yes, I'm aware of the rule of nobody who made the final coming back as well. He's still 10th.
Sean Mark. Wait, or is it Sean Luke? I don't know. I want him to come back.
They would still bring back Thomas, Sanna, and Joachim more than they should have brought back Huron.
They would have brought back that model in the basement before they brought back Huron, if they had the option.
Who Art awkwardly flirted with.
No, I mean one of the wooden ones.
Point still stands.
They could do all first boots, bring back Vincent. Why don't they do that?
Oh God, can you imagine if American fans discovered the show? Jesus.
What about the public gets to vote who plays? That'd be a great idea.
The public should get a say in who wins the season. They should get to award 10 extra questions to the person they like the most.
The public would look at this season and vote for Annemieke.
Was she from Newfoundland?
She is the most goofy Neefy of this cast. The worrying thing is, Annemieke ends up hosting the official podcast with Rick, I think. I don't think she ever did Mole Talk, but she ends up hosting the official podcast with Rick.
Can you imagine two people on this show you would less like to see hosting a podcast?
Well, I mean, Rob has the unfair advantage of having a podcast already, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Who would you want to hear do a podcast from this season?
Cecile.
Who isn't Cecile, obviously.
Tim?
Yeah.
I think Tim and Tarka's bromance would work well in a podcast dynamic, actually.
Yeah.
I'd like to see Cecile and Ellie do a podcast just for Cecile to get really pissed off at Ellie constantly. Because their one-sided feud is beautiful.
I wouldn't mind seeing a Tim and Marjolaine podcast where Tim is sort of really hyper obsessive over the things, and then Marjolaine just sort of doesn't pay attention at all. It'll be just like this podcast.
Sorry, what? You are welcome.
Usually it's Saunders that doesn't pay attention.
So Annemieke and Klaas are the first to go up against each other. They've got 2 minutes to pick something, and they have to return to the start line within that time or hand in what they found. And they have to count it out themselves, so Annemieke, doing her radio DJ thing, just sings Blur's Song 2 in her head, which she knows is 2 minutes and 14 seconds long. As much as I'm going to rag on Annemieke for the rest of this episode, not a bad tactic at all.
No.
The funnier thing is obviously the editors then put it in the background.
I've been campaigning for my local trivia competition where in the music rounds to have song number 2 be song number 2 by Blur.
On this podcast, we only acknowledge question number 9, on which note, happy Groundhog Day, Daniel Peak.
Oh yeah, happy Groundhog Day. Damn.
Yeah,
Again.
we forgot to do it last week.
It was heavily implied, regardless.
Yeah.
Annemieke then goes for the grand prize, or what she calls the grand prize, which is 3 jokers and minus 500 euros for the pot, and Klaas goes for a joker. They return to their partners, and Annemieke claims that she picks just 1 joker to Tarka. Tarka is basically her useful idiot here, because I don't think she'd have got away with this bullshit with anyone else in the cast.
Maybe Marjolaine.
Yeah. I mean, Tarka is so wonderfully understanding and trusting, I think, that I don't think anyone else would have actually trusted Annemieke when she went, I have 1 joker. And Klaas also got 1 joker, so there's no single jokers left. And then when he bumbles into the field and sees a joker left, he goes, oh, there is still a joker left. How is that possible? Either Annemieke or Klaas have lied to me, but I've spoken to Annemieke, so she can't lie to me.
It is a really good impersonation.
I think we may have found Tarka's voice on this podcast. Tarka, if somehow you end up listening to this, I love you really, but God, you're an idiot in this season.
Yeah.
I didn't know he sounded like Aaron and Jocelyn.
Who?
Snap, snap, slay?
Are they the ones who ran to Russia?
No, that's Jessica and Brittany.
Oh, they're the ones who'd rather waterboard themselves and listen to this podcast again, aren't they? I forgot about that.
Yep.
And just out of interest, are Aaron and Jocelyn still doing their social media stuff, or have we outlived them still? I think we all know the answer to that question. So Tim and Cecile are the next to enter the field. She grabs a code and tries it on all the chests, and Tim grabs a dictionary but then swaps it out for a card with tips for the next test. Cecile is left in the mine, having run out of time. And then we get another wonderful confessional from Tim when he says to Rop that he's basically not giving him any information unless he gets something to exchange for it. And he says in confessional that they're friends, but not in this game.
I wonder how long it would have taken them to find the money in the dictionary, like if Art didn't tell them at the end.
Here's the thing. If they put something in there, it's probably going to be useful for something, even if it's not this challenge.
Yeah.
It's Chekhov's gun. If that dictionary is in one of those baskets, you probably want it to enter the game in some capacity. It will help you in the long run. Ellie and Taka are then the third to enter. Ellie goes for an exemption code, while Taka finds a Yoko, which means either Annemieke or Klaas lied to him. Shot, gasp, horror! He grabs the Yoko while she gets the envelope dubbed Take It, and she can use it to steal anything that someone else grabbed. Is there anyone else in this cast who would have been better than Ellie Loost to grab the Kenneth's Mact power? It works perfectly for Ellie and for her personality. Like, I don't even think Cecile would have got away with groping everyone.
No.
She'd be like, I can't frisk this person. Your clothes don't coordinate well enough.
You're wearing puke-coloured water shoes. I'm not going anywhere near you.
Yeah, you can have, even if you have a black exemption hidden in there, I'm not going to go for it.
Whereas Ellie's just like, is that a black exemption in your pocket, or are you just pleased to see me?
It really feels like Ellie being allowed to frisk people kind of defeats the purpose of the concept. Like, it's not so much, guess who has a thing if you can feel them.
Yeah, that's what I took note of that too, where it was supposed to be all about, you have 2 minutes to question people, not 2 minutes to grope people.
Yeah.
This isn't Island of the Idols.
Yeah, but it's really, really funny.
Yeah, it does, but also, would you ever actually be able to say no to Ellie Loost? The producers probably said, Ellie, you can only interrogate them, and she goes, well, I'm going to frisk them. And they go, okay, we're not going to stop you.
And then Tim pulls out a paddle and just starts hitting Ellie Loost in the face when she tries to frisk him.
That's a paddling. Yeah, I think the producers were probably as intimidated by Ellie Loost as I would be if I met Ellie Loost.
And that's why she got back from Renaissance, because she heard they were doing it and just demanded to be back on.
Yeah. And fun fact, she also only lasted 4 episodes in that season.
Mm.
She's lasted an entire Renaissance season over her 2 seasons.
Yeah, she's not very good at Venom.
No, but she's a very entertaining character. Mainly in this season, let's be honest. But
she's the forgotten bald one.
Yeah, she does last longer than Baldwin and Burnson. What happens to her envelope then? Is that just dead and out of play then?
What, the information for the full test?
Oh no, that'd still be for the same one. Never mind. We're on episode 4. Disregard what I said.
Yeah. It never comes into play. We never hear anything about it. We don't know what her information was.
I presume it would have been like copies of the test questions or something.
I presume so, but it doesn't become a plot point.
No.
And you'd have thought if the person who ends up going home on this episode gets information on the test, you probably show at least a confessional of them going, oh, here's what the actual information for the test was. It's all the questions, just so they can answer this question.
Yeah, you'd think they would want to show that information just to have that big moment of, she had information for the 4th test and she still got executed. What a blunder. It's like going home with an idol in your pocket.
Yeah.
Maybe the info, or she didn't get to open it till after the execution, where Art says, okay, Ellie, open up the envelope, and she opens up the envelope for the information on the test, and it just says 2 words, you gone.
I do wonder if maybe part of it is they didn't want to have that storyline 2 weeks in a row, because the same basic thing happened with Remy not bidding on the test power last week.
Yeah, etc. It's still a loose end. I mean, this season, as we've already discussed in this episode, is not great at tying up its loose ends.
No.
It's not Pandora's Box's consequence level, but still.
Yeah.
It's not brilliant at actually answering the questions that we would have had. So Marjolein and Ruff are the last to enter. He goes in counting his time, but then sees the numerical codes and it immediately distracts him. He also keeps slipping, which is hilarious, and they don't draw attention to it. And she grabs the 500 euros for the pot while he runs out of time. Art then reunites them all and reveals that Ellie took the Take It card. She can question them all for 2 minutes before making a decision, And Annemieke says she's terrified of Ellie's probing eyes and is called out for having a yoke in her back pocket. Ellie then just decides to go rogue and frisk everyone, including Tim's back pocket, and she takes his information for the full test from his back pocket. And only he and Ellie know what she's got. He also confirms that they found plus €500 and minus €500, and the dictionary, if they'd taken it, would have contained €2,000 hidden in the pages. Annemieke in confessional says, however, she doesn't feel bad at all because she's got 3 yokers and suck it, everyone.
Which is fair.
It is fair, but she's gone from being completely purple to over-the-top negative in this episode.
OTTN5.
I also must point out, this is the first time I think we've seen the €1,000 note properly. Ellie's profile picture in this is her in full police dress.
Well, that makes sense.
It's not her normal profile picture, and it's not the one that we're using for suspicions. It's her in full police brass, and it makes me laugh every time we see it in this episode.
I think it would have been even funnier if it was Ellie in police uniform on one of the minus money notes.
Yeah. Because I think there is a comment in the first challenge as well of my line going, oh, that's my face on a note. I was wondering where it had got to. Sorry, it's a negative one, guys. So at lunch, everyone's still wondering who took the minus €500. Cecile says as treasurer, she still needs the minus money, mainly because she wants to know who's hiding things from her. And Taka thinks that it's class.
Do they normally keep the minus money? Like, I realised this season it's part of the clue. But I feel like normally when they end up with minus money, Art just takes the money away from them straight away.
Yeah, I was going to get to that, but I think it is because of the back of the note clue. I think that's the way that they're hinting to them, like, oh, maybe there's something on the money. Not realizing that, everyone's worked it out already and they just want more notes.
Yeah.
Like, they didn't care what the notes were in this episode as long as they were notes. And Art says that with a quick move, Annemieke saved herself by hiding 2 of her yokers during Ellie's frisking. And they could find more money if they leave the ground and conquer their fears. However, on the way to the third challenge, Cecile is loving life on a very bumpy boat ride.
Her shoes are puke colored now.
Yeah.
Cecile is such a good character. I love that they just go to either her or Tim every single moment to get a reaction. It's never anyone else they get reactions off, it's only her and Tim. And they're taken to Fronton Beach.
Sadly, not Haiti.
Sadly, yeah. Maybe they should have. Maybe it should have been a surprise mid-season country switch.
Yeah,
surprise! You're not going to Los Haitis. You're going to Haiti. and Cecile would have hated that even more.
Well, hopefully Tim can use that paddle on all of the gang members that are running the city, and that's as far as I'm willing to go down that path.
Yeah, I was going to say that's quite a risque joke for you, really. You're usually on your best behavior.
Can you imagine just Tim with the paddle? Boom, boom, boom. Haiti, problem solved. Everything is back to normal. All because of Tim's paddle. He gave all those gangsters a paddling.
Art tells them there's a chest suspended on the cliff above them with 2 locks, and all they have to do is bring it down and open it with the 3rd key on the ground. If they solve riddles, they'll be given the right keys to bring it down and take the money. They have 8 chances for 2 keys, and that is on the proviso that they all are willing to climb. Cecile, however, is not.
I don't know why, but it's just really funny watching Dutch people swear in English.
Yeah.
No bloody way, indeed.
Yeah, I wrote that too. I was thinking, where did that come from, Cecile?
Cecile's such an icon. I love her.
Not for a million, gajillion, bazillion euros will I climb that cliff.
I will also say, they were bigging this up as being a really difficult climb, and you got to really face your fears to climb it. Tim was climbing in Converse. If it was a difficult climb, they would have been given puke-coloured footwear. This was not a difficult climb. They were probably told no open-toed shoes, but if Tim can climb a rock face in Converse, it is not a difficult climb.
No.
So Tim is the first to climb and receives a set of keys. And unsurprisingly, it doesn't work. And then class goes second. They get the classic how many nines on a street of doors from 0 to 99.
99.
And they get that one wrong too. Do you know the answer to that one?
Well, 99 is always the tricky part that people forget about.
Yeah.
It's 20.
It is 20, yeah.
Yeah. I like it more lines like, it's 20. It's 20. Does anyone hear me? Do I need the megaphone? Because everyone is ignoring me right now when I keep saying the correct answer. Like, no one acknowledges her. No one even responds to her. Class just goes up, grabs the key, and he's gone.
Yeah.
He's gone.
It's like 10 numbers that start with 9, 10 numbers that end with 9. That's all you have to do. And they spend so long arguing about this.
I will also say my hatred of anything to do with logic puzzles is very well known on this podcast. The 1% Club is the worst show that has been on ITV in years and should be cancelled purely because of their behaviour towards the participants. It also does not make interesting television.
No.
This is a stinker of a challenge.
It's fun to watch them pointlessly argue over easy questions, though.
Oh, it's fun to watch them argue, but there's very little entertainment value in watching people do rock climbing and watching people do riddles.
Yeah, and like they're not even interesting riddles. Like it would be one thing if they were interesting riddles, but it's like, what's the odds of getting 2 heads if you toss 2 coins? Or how many tiles are there in a domino game? And I'm like, that's not puzzle. It's just count.
It's also not how many tiles are there in a domino game. It's how many tiles are there in a domino game. Here's a formula to work it out.
I have 2 coins. One is not a nickel. What are they?
It's just, yeah. I didn't enjoy this last challenge, as you might have guessed.
At least the view is a C+.
Yeah.
Is that the rating you gave for this challenge in your challenge guide? C+?
That's what Tim says when he finishes the climb. He shouts down, "The key didn't work, but at least the view's a C+."
That's what I had written down. I was thinking that'd be funny to put that as the same grade in the challenge guide.
Without having looked, I suspect that this got less than a C+ on the challenge guide.
Yeah, I don't remember enjoying this challenge.
So Marjolaine's third to climb. She tries the key in the main lock, not realizing there are 2 attaching it to the rock face, and she only realizes when everyone tells her after she gets to the bottom. What an idiot.
You need that in the Hermione Granger voice. What an idiot. That's more of something Taka would do.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Taka's at the bottom going, "Oh, what is a lock?"
I don't know.
I sort of hope Taka hears these podcasts. I love you, really, Taka. I'm just taking the piss out of you. You're far more successful than I'll ever be. Taka is the 4th to climb, and he finally unlocks one of the locks. Not that he had to answer the question. Annemieke is 5th up, but she bails during the climb, and she says she has enough to live for, and Rop doesn't buy her acting. And then Ellie is 6th and learns from everyone else's mistakes. She successfully unlocks the chest, and Rop asks us what someone would do without Ellie loosed. And we're about to find out. And she opens the chest to find €1,500, meaning they earn €1,500 for the challenge, 2,500 of 9,010 for the episode, and 4,310 of 20,910 for the season so far.
And survey says C.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And Ellie says €1,500 is a bit low for the amount of effort that they put in.
She would be disappointed by current seasons.
Yes, she would.
It does seem pretty low, though.
It does, yeah.
Because it was an all or nothing challenge, right?
Yep. And it wasn't a particularly hard all or nothing challenge, really.
No. €1,500 does seem less than you think.
Yeah, when it's like riddles that people have heard 10 or 20 times by that point, probably throughout their lives.
Yeah.
I mean, we were just short of getting I have 2 coins adding up to 30 cents, and one of them is not a nickel. What are they? Type of riddle.
So it's now time for the test. 20 questions about the identity and actions of the mole. Whoever knows least goes home, except for the mole who can never go home. Annemieke has 3 jokers, and Klaas has 1. Taka says he suspects the 3 men. Tim tries but doesn't win anything. Klaas he doesn't have much to say about, and Rop could be the mole. Rop says he likes Annemieke and they'll have a beer after this, but she's screwing him. If you ask Saunders, maybe that's true. Annemieke is dropping Taka, but switching to his buddy Tim, and she plays all 3 of her jokers. Tim says Klaas is less suspicious, but still suspicious. It is a gut feeling. Cecile isn't doing well, but nobody really cares. Cecile sticks with Ellie even though she won today for the team, but what could she do if the team gave her the right key? Ellie thinks that the mole should be sensitive, observant, and pay attention. Annemieke is sweet but not sensitive, so she's dropped down the list. Marjolein says Ellie's hard to read. In the police you have undercover agents too. And Tim is high on Class's list. He seems fairly fanatic, but never brings in money, and he plays his yoker. Art says they're in Gueva San Gabriel for the execution, a cave where the mole will feel at ease. Even if they see a red screen, they still got to see one of the best sights in the Dominican Republic. In the past few days, they've faced the waves and heights and run through a hot mine, all to get the pot back to where it was before the last test and execution. Minus €500 was also handed in during the test, meaning Cecile needs to recalculate. Ropp is the only person to see a green screen before Ellie Loost is sent home third. And she is shocked.
She gone.
She gone indeed.
For the first time.
And another, you could say goodbye.
Yeah, I was about to say the third one in a row where it's just this really long, awkward pause where Ellie is just rubbing her face for about 2 minutes, and then Art is just staring at her, just waiting, saying, do you guys not pay attention to the other two executions? Like this, I'm not supposed to be doing this every time. You can say goodbye now. But now that I've done this so many times, everyone's going to be waiting for me to say goodbye.
I know this cast is full of recruits, but like the whole point is you get a red screen and then you fuck off my screen. Get moving.
Were you not briefed on the procedure, Ellie? I thought you worked for the police.
I think Ellie is the first person this season who really deserves a eulogy as well.
Yeah.
I think she served her purpose. I think she probably would have got a lot more irritating if she'd lasted too much longer. But God, was she fun for people to bounce off in these first 4 episodes.
Like, I feel like if Remy had lasted longer, he probably would have come out of his shell a little bit more and been more entertaining. But Ellie was like that from the start. And that's the sort of thing you need on a show like this.
Ellie is absolutely a punching bag in this season, but she has a very good sense of humor about it. She knows how po-faced, serious, militant she is in a lot of these things. And it's all the better for it. The fact she has a sense of humor about it is even better, as we see in this episode.
It's funny that, because I was only introduced to her through the Renaissance season, and just how all of the cast was gravitating towards her and waiting for her to utter her catchphrases. So it's funny going through these episodes now and thinking, I did not expect Ellie Luce to be that big with the public to carry over into Renaissance, where she was, probably the second biggest get of the season for Renaissance, the second biggest after Nikki.
Yeah, in this cast, I can definitely see the argument for bringing Ellie back. Absolutely.
Yeah. This cast, it was either Ellie or Cecile. Maybe Tim.
Like, if you're going to bring someone back from Dominican Republic, Ellie has got to be high up that list, I think. Because she is such a instrumental figure in the first bit of this season. She brings everyone else out of their shell because they all just get to take the piss out of her.
As soon as they were talking into forks, everyone else had more than enough ammunition to just keep ragging on Ellie Luce for the next several episodes.
And it's worth also pointing out that Ellie is a very big success in her own right. She definitely used to, at least. I think she still might host the after shows and live finale for Dutch Hunted. PT Ann does the voiceovers, and Ellie's definitely done live reunions from Vondel CS for Hunted. Because she actually did the live reveal for probably the most infamous Hunted escape ever, which was one of the Dutch ones.
Interesting.
But yeah, Ellie is, even though she's retired from the police by the point of this season, she's still very much a TV presenter in her own right and stuff now.
Good for her.
Yeah. And obviously, she isn't the best character of the season, but she informs a lot of the people coming out of their shell at the start of this season, I would say. This season would be infinitely worse without Ellie Loost.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
So she's in disbelief. She tried her best and enjoyed herself immensely. She's full of gratitude, and she thought she was on the right track. She spread, but results don't lie. Next time, the group search for symbols on the water. Wise answers can be found on bikes. It is a total disaster, and they face the bridge to nowhere to exchange information. Now, the most important question of the episode. Who's fucking Saunders?
Cecile and Tim.
Interesting choice. I love how you were obviously waiting for me to ask the question as well.
I was going to say Cecile and Rob, but then I remembered my mistake from before. So it's like, no, that's just impossible. So Cecile and Tim.
I just love this. I love this joke.
It's my favorite thing about historians this year.
Yeah. Like, I don't think we can bring it outside of this historian, sadly, but
No.
I would love it if we have another secret relationship that ends up being revealed.
We should just ask it like every season and just have the answer be nobody all the time. But like we can just like who fucking Saunders? Mikhail and Senna?
So, final two questions, Saunders. Who do you suspect, and how many canisters did the mole bring back in the kayak challenge?
Well, zero canisters that the mole brought back. And my suspect list: Klaas, Annemieke, Rop, Tim, Marline, Cecile, and then Taka.
And actually, who do you think's going home next week?
I think we're saying goodbye to Taka.
Interesting.
Mm.
Because, as Bindles and I have discussed before, I think there's an execution every episode now. I don't think we have any more non-elims.
Nah.
It's all red screens all the time now.
Yay!
Which is how seasons should be formatted.
Yes.
It's one major plus for Dominican Republic is they get the actual structure of the boot order absolutely perfect. If you're going to do a non-elim, do it early on, then have red screens every single week and make it actually tense.
Yeah.
And we have one more person to eulogize today. Larry from The Simpsons.
Ah, yeah, I forgot about him. The irony in that I was discussing that news story with my parents just yesterday, and I couldn't remember the guy's name.
Oh, Larry the Barfly. 35 years. 35 years he was on The Simpsons.
Anything else you guys want to say about this episode? Or about Ellie?
Or Larry.
Or Larry, yeah. You do realise that by the time this comes out, it's going to be super not topical, right?
Everyone's going to be asking who the hell is Larry. Is that Ellie Loose's brother? Larry Loosed.
At least the Survivor 50 stuff will still be vaguely relevant. So, thank you for listening to our Vias to Mole 2016 recap. We'll be back next week to continue the hunt for an old mole in the Dominican Republic. Don't forget you can contact us on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, or Instagram, where we are RTV Warriors. Or you can email us and contact at rtvwarriors.com. Logan's on the artist follow me on his Twitter at Loxakoraki. Bindles is the Grumble Michael, and I'm Richard Harmstone. You can also support us on Patreon at patreon.com/rtvwarriors. Thank you as always to Marika for the subtitles, and we will see you next week.
Peace out and just chill till the next flavoring.
Tim Hoffman, report to my office for a frisking and then a paddling.